Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It is lovely to see you all. Please share your name, your institution or organization, and your location in the chat. And hope everyone who has been affected by the hurricane is staying safe. But yes, welcome. This is an event partnership between the Center for Artistic Activism and Project Pericles. We're so happy to partner again to bring you this event. And what we'll do today is delve into the power of creativity in supporting civic engagement on campus. We're going to hear from some amazing faculty who are using arts and creativity to boost electoral engagement. We're going to get easy and practical tools for your own work to implement this fall. And we're going to learn some fun ways to participate in National Voter Education Week. And Brandon, take it away.
Yeah, hi. My name is Brandon Bauer. I'm an associate professor of art at St. Norbert College. And this is a huge election. We have on the ballot, of course, we have the president and vice president. We have, a third of the seats in the Senate. We have all of the seats for the House of Representatives. And then, of course, there's just numerous, local elections, state elections, legislators in 86 of the country's 99 legislative chambers. So it's a huge election, up and down the ballot, and it's really critical to get students involved in the election. You can go to the next one. And this is just some data from the Circle Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement at Tufts. But looking at where young voters, student voters will have an influence in the election, on a national level, whether it is the presidential election or in state elections, Senate elections. Of course, there's all of the standard swing state areas, but there's some also surprising places where the Senate race it's already tightening up just by the polls, looking at places like Texas and things like that. You can go to the next one. Yeah, and most states are really far behind, and this is data from Tufts, their Circle project, but most states are really far behind in registering newly eligible voters from 2020. There's only 2 states currently, and this was at the beginning of September, that were ahead of registration from 2020, and that was Washington and Michigan. But it's really important to engage students because research shows that first-time voting experiences help create repeated voting habits. So engaging students, getting them involved in the election in one way or another in your classes really has a big effect in creating lifelong voters. And then I would say, both the Center for Artistic Activism and Project Pericles, all of the kinds of materials that you'll be exposed to through, the projects that people are going to discuss today, really can lead into that in small ways and large ways, both through the voter activation modules at Project Pericles and the Creative Campaign Toolkit and other resources from the Center for Artistic Activism.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. And to formally introduce myself, I am Crystal Barrett. I am the programs coordinator at the Center for Artistic Activism, and I'm joined by some of my colleagues here. You can say hi. And just to share about the Center for Artistic Activism, we are a nonprofit that was founded in 2009, and we help organizations and individuals bring more creativity and innovation to their vital social justice and civic engagement work. And we do that through trainings, resources, different research, and fellowships. And one of our main focuses for the past several years has been our Unstoppable Voters program, which focuses on bringing more creativity and innovation to protecting the freedom to vote in the United States. And through Unstoppable Voters, we've been able to work on college campuses and universities across the nation, working with faculty and students to create on creative civic engagement. And last year, we launched our first ever faculty fellowship, which has engaged a cohort of faculty nationwide to develop creative pro-voting campaigns on their campuses using our creative campaign framework. And these fellows represent a variety of institutions, as you can see. They're all across the nation, and they represent the fields of art, design, theater, and also political science and clinical psychology. And I'm also going to share, if you're interested, I'll put this in the chat. This is just more about our fellows. And then we also recently published a new video about the fellowship program and the amazing work they're doing to motivate the student vote. And I'm happy to now introduce our partners, Project Pericles.
Thanks, Crystal. Hey, everyone. I'm Ariel. I'm the Associate Director at Project Pericles. We are a consortium of 29 institutions, primarily liberal arts, that promotes civic engagement across the undergraduate experience, but particularly in the curriculum. We do work with many campuses beyond this network as well. You can go to the next slide. And we're partnering with C4A because we also have a fellowship, and one of our amazing fellows from PACE will be speaking later today. This is one of the ways that we do extend beyond our network of 29 campuses, because our fellowships are open to all faculty and staff from all institutions. You can go to the next slide. Our fellowships actually draw upon a free online resource that we have for folks. There are civic engagement resources. I'm just going to drop them in the chat. They cover a whole wide variety of civic engagement, particularly voter engagement, from deliberative dialogue discussions that connect policy with real-world issues and the elected officials who get to decide those policies, to more standard how to vote, why voting matters as well. We also have a new module that we released last year that addresses voter suppression, empowers students to expand voting rights and get out the vote. You can go to the next slide. I think that's it for today, or at least for this moment. And you'll get to hear more about what this actually looks like in action from one of our fellows speaking today.
Yeah, so we know this is a short call, so we're going to get started now with our featured speakers. I'm so excited to introduce them. We have Daniela Mascarenas from Xavier, Louisiana, or Xavier University of Louisiana, Erin Maizo-Glenn, Pace University, and then Ileana Reed from Students Learn, Students Vote. And Daniela is going to start for us, and Daniela is Assistant Professor of Political Science at Xavier University of Louisiana, and also one of our Unstoppable Voters faculty fellows. So Daniela, you can take it away.
All right, thanks everyone. You can go ahead to my first slide. I'll give you the cues to move along. So yes, as Crystal said, I'm Daniela Mascarenas. I'm an assistant professor at Xavier University of Louisiana. I'm very honored to be here representing the Unstoppable Voters Faculty Fellowship. You can go to the next one. One of the reasons that I joined this fellowship is because I really connect with C4AA's mission to use art as a catalyst for engagement and activism. Yeah, I'm a political scientist, yes, but art's also really been important to me. For instance, my husband is a ceramics artist. That's me working in his studio there. And I think that art has a unique power to provoke thought, challenge perceptions, and drive change. And so it seems like a no-brainer to sort of combine activism and art if you want to send some really powerful messages. You can go to the next slide. So I first started using creative civic engagement materials from C4AA in spring 2024. And I first started using them in my Introduction to American Government courses. It's a political science course, and so not a single student entered that course thinking they were going to do art projects. So I had to do a lot of sort of foundational things to start and tell them what creative civic engagement is. I drew pretty heavily from the educational materials from the Center for Artistic Activism so that I could show students what the power of art is. I gave them examples of artistic activism so they could understand how art and politics can intertwine. I was pretty unfamiliar with the materials at first. You can still stay on the first one, the other one before. and motivating students in this way. So I was a little hesitant in terms of how students should execute acts of artistic activism. So I was like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to have them do prototypes of artistic engagement first, and then maybe I can start introducing actual acts with my students. So students use the materials to plan prototypes, and that helped them sort of refine their goals, find their audiences, use tactics that help them achieve their goals, and really target those audiences. So for example, I had some students that wanted to create this prototype to address the issue of Cancer Alley, which is an area in Louisiana where there's lots of industrial dumping, and that's caused high levels of cancer in residents. So this group had to recognize that their tactic needs to target the right audience. And that audience needs to be the people who are doing the polluting or regulatory agencies that can intervene, rather than just targeting the residents in the community where cancer is prevalent, because otherwise that's just sort of raising awareness for the people that already know that this is prevalent. So the resources from C4AA really helped me clarify this with my students and kind of work in these very targeted ways. Okay, next slide. So I knew that I wanted to see how students would use these materials in the real world, but like I said, I was kind of nervous to do this in my classroom. So the safe space that I did this was with my student club, it's called the Government and Politics Association Society. I'm their faculty advisor. And so the students in this club actually developed a project in spring that they executed both on campus and near the French Quarter here in New Orleans. So these students developed what they called a political party booth, where they had these party games that focused on voter registration and voter education for the general election in November. So for example, one of the games that you see there is called Pin the Pole, which was a twist on Pin the Tail on the Donkey. So participants had to pin where they thought their early voting locations were in New Orleans. And if you were within a certain radius, you would win a prize. Okay, next slide. So in looking at my experience from spring 2024, my student club just had way more enthusiasm about executing an act of artistic activism compared to my classes that were designing the prototypes. The student class reflections from that prototype class even revealed that a lot of them had this disconnect between art and how it can impact civic engagement. And a lot of them even said, well, I don't want to do physical activities because it's much easier to do them online. And so I was like, how do I make this more relevant and compelling for my students? That was my challenge as I did this in the fall. You can go to the next slide. So in the fall, I said, I'm making these classes do an act of artistic activism. And they're actually currently in the process of planning that. They're executing it on Tuesday. So one of my classes is creating TikTok style videos. They have this entire social media campaign, almost this like blending of social media that they're so interested in and physical things. And they're creating TikTok style videos to interview people on policy questions and get them signed up to register to vote. The other is doing these large opinion boards with like Post-its and push pins so that there's sort of this engagement in terms of discussion on campus about voter engagement. And again, also prompting people to register to vote. And honestly, I haven't fully got their reflections yet from my fall class, but these students in my fall class are just far more engaged. They're making these greater connections between their goals and their tactics. I can see them thinking through their problems more thoroughly. And I think the connection between art and activism is much clearer for them. So the next slide. Based on these experiences, these are some helpful things that I'm keeping in mind as I continue to use these types of tactics in my class. First of all, it was very scary to just have days that were open-ended, but that's what I did. In my class, I didn't have anything planned, and I let students plan what they were doing. I let students brainstorm, and I even let them decide on their timelines and the dates that they wanted to complete things. This gave them ownership over their material, and I think kept them on a track that they agreed to. I also think bringing in case studies is really helpful. You should give them several examples of how art and activism can enact the change, like real world change. I also think that students should have iterative reflection and feedback, and they should be reviewing themselves, not just me reviewing them. That's what's been very successful. And then lastly, I think that valuing the process and the product is very important, the process of them planning. So grading should also include the efforts in the process, not just the product. Okay, that's it. I've been keeping my time, so I'm almost at 7 minutes. I'm excited to see how everything goes next week for my classes, but thank you for your time, and I hope that this has been helpful for y'all.
Thank you so much, Daniela. That was amazing to hear. I'm so excited too to see what they're going to do. And maybe we can figure out a way for you to share it with all of these folks to inspire everyone even more. And next, we're going to hear from Erin. Erin is the Assistant Director of the Center for Community Action and Research, and also an adjunct professor of Peace and Justice Studies at Pace University. And Erin also has been a fellow with Project Pericles. So Erin, take it away.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I really liked Daniela's pushpin voting site activity. And so, yeah, I'm currently serving as a Periclean Fellow in the Civic and Voter Engagement Fellowship that Ariel mentioned. And our campus is one of the campuses who are like members of Project Pericles. And so I've been, you know, associated with Project Pericles for a while, but I'm excited to be personally working as a fellow this year and kind of at the intersections of my two roles as someone working more so in student life and an academic context as well. So I'm first going to talk about our voter outreach zine and how we kind of like connected some like academic culture and focus right now to our voter engagement work. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about a program we're doing for National Voter Education Week to get us thinking about that too. So I'm at Pace University, which is in downtown Manhattan, and we have a large emphasis on experiential learning as well as like alternative forms of thinking about how we're accessing knowledge. And so at Pace, there's an emphasis on like zine pedagogy and a lot of faculty in courses like Women and Gender Studies and English are using zines as part of the classroom, either on the syllabus or students are creating them. And then recently, a zine library has also been created on campus. And so zines are like little pamphlets, like self-published materials, and you can see some in the picture there. So my student staff and I visited the zine library last year. Students had been making zines in some of their classes. We'd just seen the zine library. And so the student leaders I oversee in our Pace Votes program, and I just thought it would be fun to go check it out. And when we were there, we were presented with a lot of parallels between the themes that we are noticing motivate students to vote, racial justice, bodily autonomy, things like that, and the content of the zines. And so we engaged in kind of a conversation of like, how could we partner with the idea of zines or formally with our zine library in some way to like draw on this kind of like curricular context and bring it into our student facing work. And so we kind of came up with the idea of thinking about a zine as a form of like community organizing, kind of grounded in like feminist community organizing specifically. And so we decided to create a zine that could support our outreach for the presidential election. And so then we did some kind of identifying what are like main themes that have been coming up for us recently. And so this was last year. And as we were starting to talk with students about the election, we were finding that a lot of students were already registered to vote. And then similarly, we were also thinking about like what voter suppression tactics do we know college students experience? And the Pericles voter suppression resources that Ariel mentioned informed some of our education around this, like historically as well as in the present day. And so we kind of did a brainstorm of what themes do we think we are often talking with students about that we want to focus in on. And so the students decided to create a zine called I've Registered to Vote, Now What? To address kind of like what happens after you register to vote. So you can go to the next slide, which has some pictures of the zine. So you can see the front cover there and then some of the pages from inside the zine. And so the starting point is for students who are already registered. It'll walk through folks in how to confirm their registration. It then goes over how to find your poll site, what are your voting options in terms of absentee, early voting, or election day. And then our voting rights page here was specifically informed by like things that we often get students asking about. So we have like a sizable queer community on campus, and we often get questions from trans and or non-binary students asking like, do I need to register to vote with my legal name, or can I use my preferred name? And then similar questions around voter ID, particularly for students who aren't voting in New York, because we don't have a voter ID requirement here. And then thinking about like, how can we integrate disability justice? So pointing students towards resources for disabled voters. And then also addressing the idea that sometimes students feel like they don't know enough to vote, and kind of thinking about like, how can we encourage students to do their research, but also like at a certain point, like just trust yourself and you are part of this process and know that you can vote. And then also connecting, using the zine to kind of highlight key issues on the ballot this year. In New York, for example, we have an abortion measure, ballot measure that could guarantee abortion rights more as part of the New York State Constitution. And so that's something students are really paying attention to. And so using the zine to highlight that. So we started handing this out at tablings last year when students would come up to the table and would say, oh, I'm already registered to vote, thanks, and kind of start to walk away. We would hand them this. We found that it led to like increased interactions. We were able to talk to people a little bit more. And then obviously that it's like designed by students, it looks catchy when it's kind of getting people's attention more than like, you know, a standard voter registration form kind of thing. And so my outcomes are that it was really significant, mostly for the students who created it, thinking about what they wanted to highlight and then collaborating on the design and making the design like the same across. Kind of required some close collaboration between students who normally are like working on different areas of work in our office. And so we're still passing it out this year. And I think we're eager to see, particularly as we kind of move out of voter registration season into like more get out the vote, ways in which it can like lead to more engagement with students. And then the last thing I was just going to note is, you can go to the next slide, is what we're doing for National Voter Education Week. So we can kind of start to transition from like inside the classroom until outside the classroom. And so thinking about like how our academic analysis, our academic programs at PACE can also be supported by co-curricular programming around the election. And so we're working with a bunch of local organizations, national organizations, including NView specifically, to run a program called PACE Drags Out the Vote. So we're having a bunch of drag performers come to campus, and then in between, our students and then some professionals from vote writers and stuff are going to be answering these common questions that we're getting from students. So kind of thinking about, we have a large performing arts school here, so how are we tapping into our like campus culture, the communities that are present on campus, the majors that are present on campus, to like do electoral organizing like outside of the classroom setting as well. And so we're really excited to see how it goes, and I will be glad to kind of let folks know like what the outcomes are and what impact we see on kind of the concrete registration, absentee ballot requests, and those kind of things that come out of the event. And I think that is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. These different events make me wish that I was on all of these campuses. So fun. And last but not least, we have Ileana Reed joining us. Ileana is the Program and Communications Coordinator at Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. And so, Ileana, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Really quick, hi everyone. I am from the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition, but if you're not familiar with the way that National Voter Education Week is run, NView is led by a steering committee of a bunch of different organizations that you can find all on our website, but the steering committee is chaired by the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. So just wanted to eliminate any confusion there. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about what MView is really quickly, and then kind of talk about how you can like integrate some of the MView strategies or some of the resources that we provide into your existing classroom work. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And really quick, I just want to drop the link actually to the NView website. So if folks want to take a look while I'm speaking, you can, or you can just save it for after. Okay. So as you might know, we kick off the civic holiday season with National Voter Registration Day, which is like the original civic holiday that emphasizes registering to vote. But with NView, what we really want to emphasize with that holiday is that you really can't, your voter education work or your voter engagement work really shouldn't stop at voter registration. So if you look at the numbers, a lot of times there's kind of a drop off between the registration rate, especially on college campuses, and then the actual turnout rate. And so when NView was created, we really like looked at the research and reasons that a lot of voters, especially new voters, gave for not actually ending up showing up to the polls. And then we created different days of action to address a lot of those like common barriers. So NView is all about removing the barriers, increasing access to the ballot box, and just making the whole election process less confusing, because it is confusing, unfortunately, and especially for new voters, it can be really overwhelming. So NView exists to kind of just allow people to chip away at all the little things that you might need to do between registering to vote and actually voting, and making it fun, which is really awesome. And we just, want to make it accessible and not intimidating at all for people. So by being an NView partner, you can really help do that and help actually make sure that that actual turnout rate is leveling the rate that we get when we are actually registering people. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is just kind of an overview of what the NView calls to action actually are. So on day one, which is going to be Monday, October 7th, we have register to vote. So kind of like building off that momentum of National Voter Registration Day. And it's kind of timed perfectly because a lot of states have voter registration deadlines that begin in early October. So this comes like right before all of the earliest state voter registration deadlines. So everybody's last chance to kind of get their voter registrations taken care of before they go on to the next step. And so then day two is October 8th, which will be get to know your ballot. So we have different ballot tools, and I'll talk about this in just a second, but we have tools through Ballot Ready and Turbo Vote to help people kind of do these actions. And so folks can look up what's going to be on their ballot using our tools, or if you have local tools that you prefer to use, you can do that too. But day two is all about just like understanding what's on the ballot, because that's another reason why folks have said that they don't turn out to vote, is because they're just unsure of what they're voting on, who they're voting for, who the candidates are. So this is a great day to take some time and do some research, and let folks figure out how they're going to be voting, which takes us then to the next day, which is make a plan to vote. And we also partner closely with Vote Early Day. They're also one of our steering committee members. So we really encourage people to take advantage of their early voting options too. So this is a really good day to uplift early voting options or mail-in ballot options or voting at home options. But yeah, we encourage people to like create worksheets where people can actually like write down the things that they're going to be doing to go vote, whether that's early or on election day. And then the next day is understand the process. And this is actually a new call to action that we just introduced in 2024 that is all about learning more about the election process and like who works behind the scenes. And so this is also a day we encourage people to celebrate election heroes or also sign up to be poll workers themselves, which is really great. But we just want to be able to build more trust in the election process, because that's another reason now that we're seeing people aren't turning out to vote, is because they aren't sure if our elections are safe, which they are, and we want people to know that. And so by doing more research and just learning more about what goes on, we're building that trust. And then the last day is share with friends and family. So of course, I'm sure a lot of you guys know that like people are more likely to actually take action around voting when someone they know encourages them. So we have tons of text and email scripts for day five to show people that you can encourage friends, family, classmates, people that you are in community with, and have them do these exact same actions too. So that's just a little overview of what the what the week of action actually looks like. And then if you go to the next slide, I wanted to kind of like share some inspiration and like give you guys some things from our toolkit that can just make it easy to celebrate NVU. I know that we're getting kind of close to the actual beginning of National Voter Education Week, and it might be, you know, a little too close to schedule like actual events. So I really wanted to focus on some of the like digital or virtual resources that we have in the toolkit. And so one of those things is, like I said, we have our registration, ballot, like polling place and plan to vote tools available on our website. So that's a great way to just kind of like redirect people to do some of the actions. Like you don't have to worry about finding those tools yourself. We've created the system so that people can just put their address in, put their name, you know, all the info, and be able to get what's on their ballot and find their polling place and things like that. Something else that we also have for each day of action is pre-written emails. So in addition to having like a general National Voter Education Week email, we also have ones for every single day of the week that you can send to your students or send out to your organizations or your partners to help them encourage them to take the same actions. And we have like literally everything already for you. All you have to do is copy and paste and maybe like tailor it a little bit to your audience if you want to, but the emails are a great way to participate in NVU with like very minimal lift. We also have slide decks. So if you're an educator and you would like to incorporate this into your classroom work, we have pre-made slide decks. We have an NVU overview one, or we have slide decks for each day of the week as well. And all the slide decks also include speaker notes. So you really don't have to worry about like becoming the expert yourself because all of the stuff is already written. So that's a great way to plug in. Another thing we have are like one-pagers and posters that you can print out and hang up around campus or in your classrooms. And then we also have guides specifically for student voters from our friends at Campus Vote Project. So that's another resource that's really great to share with students because it can be confusing voting on a college campus or voting out of state while you're on a college campus. So we have guides for everybody that that will show them how to vote. And so then you can go to the next slide. I'll drop the link to our partner toolkit, but I just have a QR code here too. So it's easier if you have your phone near you and you want to check it out, go ahead and scan that code and you can find all the resources from the toolkit that I just talked about. But yeah, that's everything for me.
Thank you, Eliana. People are loving all these resources. Thank you. And let's give like a virtual round of applause to our speakers. Amazing job, y'all. Thank you. And we're going to get into a Q&A now. And there's already so many great questions in the chat. So I'm going to go up to see. I know, Eliana, people are asking for links for a lot of resources. If you have a moment to put those in. And then we had, let's see, a question for Daniela and one for Aaron. I know, Aaron, someone was asking if the zine, if there's like a public link to it.
There isn't a link, but I'll put my email in the chat and I'm happy to share like a PDF copy with you, both like text and then like the version it could fold. There is some like PACE specific stuff. So I think it probably is more so serves as like a guide for something you could create or students could create. But most of the information would be.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we did have a question for Daniela. For some reason, okay, I just found it. Sorry about that. Daniela, Sarah is asking, what are some of your favorite examples of how art can impact social/civic causes?
So I share several examples that actually C4A helped provide me with, but one of the best ones that my students really get a lot out of is the example of the World AIDS Convention. There was a group in South Africa that was dedicated to raising awareness for sex workers and the risks that they experience in exposure to AIDS. And their work, or at least the way that they tried to get this mentioned at the World AIDS Conference, was rushing the stage, which didn't work very well. It just got them kicked out. So Steve actually with C4AA helped create this sign at the next World AIDS Conference that said, you've been talking, and then it had a timer, X amount of time, you've been talking this long without mentioning sex work. And it worked. Everyone who was giving a speech got up and rechanged what they said in their speech, and mentioned sex work and the risk of AIDS and sex work. And I think that's one of the examples that my students really took to heart as important, and a way that you can create a tactic that's not necessarily aggressive, but also very impactful.
Thank you. And Bobby, you have your hand raised. Do you want to ask a question?
Actually, I wanted to answer Sarah's question. Like, how do we engage young people who are, cannot register to vote? Can we go back to the people rather than the Q&A time? Because I love seeing faces.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. I was trying to fix it. I'm not sure why you're not seeing them,
I
but
might have broken it. It might be me, let's be honest.
Can everyone see our speakers though? Can others see them? Getting some nods.
Oh,
Okay.
you can, okay.
Okay. Sorry,
So,
Bob.
it's okay. So Sarah, one of the things that I've been thinking about is how can we have an inclusive campus in these discussions? Because it's not just about political engagement, such as voting, it's also about civic engagement. And for me, this is one of the big things that we've been thinking about this past year with my BC Votes program, is there are students that are ineligible to vote. So there are international students. There are students that are not 18 yet. There are students that are ineligible to vote because of past criminal records. But there are also other students who are undocumented students. So how can we create an inclusive campus? And some of the things that we do when we create things like programming that is about like pledge cards, we make sure that we have pledge cards that don't only include voting, but we have pledge cards that are specific towards students that might be ineligible, so they can still be involved in the conversations. We use the term engage instead of voting, because I think that
It's
language.
been 16.
I'm sorry. We think a language is essential when we're talking about these things. And so we come together and talk about how can we understand these issues and what values do we have in common and where do we disagree? Because these are really important aspects of what we do in really thinking about engaging all students and even engaging our community members. So those are some of the ways that we've been thinking about it, how we can have a discussion of elections around the world, right? Or what does it mean if I can't vote? What are the other ways that I can engage? And so those are some of the ways that we have really been thoughtful in the work that we're doing, because it's not, let's be more inclusive in our language and in our choices when we are talking about engaging students in a democracy.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. I think we can do one more question. And it was for any of our speakers, do you have ideas for how to engage young people who cannot register to vote yet? So, for example, high school students who might not be 18 yet.
I think that there's definitely ways to get them involved in the civic process. The things that I'm doing with the C4AA materials are about raising awareness, not just raising awareness, but also convincing other people to do things, which is what you have to do if you're under 18 and still want to get involved in politics. I think about how effective the March for Our Lives campaign was after numerous school shootings, and high schoolers were the ones that led that. So I think that there are lots of ways that you can convince others to enact policy on your behalf.
I agree. And I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways of just, having students explore their own political identity and formation and things like that. And even with like some of the things that people have mentioned, like Enview talked about, like poll working and things like that. A lot of times, even if you aren't 18 or eligible to vote, you are eligible to become a poll worker. So there's other ways of engaging civically, even if you're not eligible to vote.
Great. Thank you. There's so much good conversation happening in the chat. So I hope y'all can take a look at that. Thanks, Ileana, for providing so many resources in the chat too. So definitely take a look. I know we just have about 5 more minutes left. So thank you again to our speakers. And we're just going to go into some even more really great resources to offer y'all. So Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just talking about this, but it's in any discipline that you're teaching in. I mean, there's always ways of getting students engaged in voting and in their civic voice. I mean, there's always like policy issues related to kind of any discipline that you're engaged in, and so that's like always an entryway into what you can do with this. And as many of the speakers were talking about, there's resources here that are going to be shared through Center for Artistic Activism, through those voting modules for Project Pericles. This, I just wanted to give a plug to. This is a project by the Work Elections Project for the Fair Elections Center called Power the Polls. And they make it very easy to, engage students in election-related poll work and things like that. So, again, you can just follow the link at powerthepolls.org. They just fill out their address, and they can be connected with poll working opportunities.
Great. And Ariel, do you want to share some Project Pericles resources?
Yeah, actually, I think Tyler, my colleague, will. Thank you.
Oh, great. Hi,
Yeah.
Tyler.
Hey, everybody. Well, first, I just want to thank everyone for coming. This has all been great and really great to hear all the great stuff. Just considering the time and knowing all that. Yeah. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat so you can check out these resources we have. If you check them out, maybe last year, last semester, some of them have been updated and changed, and they will be updated more in the coming semesters. So yeah, I hope that they're helpful. And if you have any questions or concerns, please, you can always reach out to us. And we always are looking forward to hearing some input, how you use them, and anything like that. Yeah. Next slide so you can awesome. Yeah, so and also yeah, please, I put the link in the chat as well so you can read a little bit more about our Civic and Voter Engagement Fellowship. So those are $1,000 awards for faculty and staff. We have 2 different tracks. There's a lot more information on the website, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Ariel. And this is a great opportunity. We have a bunch of fellows in here, so maybe you can ask them if they want to share a little bit more about their experiences. So we hope that can be useful, and we hope to see your applications come in soon. I've also attached the slides, and yeah, also obviously want to thank our funders who make this possible, the Mellon Foundation and the Eugene Lang Foundation. And yeah, thank you all for coming. If you check out our website, you can also sign up for our newsletter. I see Ariel also dropped the link, so thank you for that. And I hope everyone has a great National Voter Education Week coming up in just about 2 weeks. So thanks, everybody. Hope you have a good one.
Thanks, Tyler. And just to share some additional resources from the Center for Artistic Activism, we have a book written by our co-founders, The Art of Activism. We also have a free toolkit that you can download from our website for free, Unleashing Unstoppable Voters. It kind of walks you through creating a campaign, an artistic activism campaign. And then you can also sign up for our newsletter. I put all those links in the chat. We are hoping to offer our faculty fellowship next year. So if you are a faculty member interested in that, you can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat as well. Or if you sign up for a newsletter, we'll always send out those opportunities through there. And then I know you have been given so many resources today, but I did want to just add on a couple more from our friends at the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. I was just at a meeting yesterday and they highlighted these. So I'm just going to put these in the chat for you. They have their Ask Every Student Toolkit. It's a resource of strategies and tools and tactics that are designed to assist campus leaders in implementing like student registration strategies on campus. And then your major on the ballot, which Brandon actually contributed to. This is a really great tool to help draw connections between like democracy and the different fields that students are studying. It's really fascinating, and I think a really great connection for students to see. And
Yeah,
we
and again, I mean, any discipline that anyone's teaching in, there's a way into engagement, and resources like this are a great first step.
Yeah, and there was a question about getting all these resources. I know we've provided you with so many, so I will send out an email with this recording, and then I will gather all of the links we've provided today and make sure they're in the chat for you so that you have those. And with that, we just want to say thank you. Here's some of our contact. But thank you so much again to Ileana, Erin, Daniela, to Project Pericles. We really appreciate this time. We know there are so many events happening right now on how to get your students engaged. And so we hope that you found this one useful, and reach out if we can be of any more help. Thank you all.